Okay, now we can proceed with our pick tool. If we select one of these objects, for example the blue rectangle, I will click to select it. As you can see, if our mouse cursor is in the area of the object, it has a dimension of a plus sign with the 4 arrows on every side. And if we click and if we hold the left mouse key, we can move this object in our working area. We click and hold our left mouse key, and now we are moving the object in our working area. I can move it outside of our working area, or I can put it back inside. Now if we select again the same object, and if we go with our mouse cursor in some of the corners, for example in the upper right corner, we can see the cursor of the mouse has a shape of a line with 2 arrows. That means that we can change the size of the object. If we click and if we hold our left mouse key, we can make this rectangle bigger, or we can click and hold our left mouse key and make it this rectangle smaller. We can do it the same command in some other corner. For example, the upper left corner, we click and make the rectangle bigger. I will move this rectangle over here. And our third command with the pick tool is rotating. First we select the object, and if we click again in the area of the object, you can see that we have arrows around every corner of the object. That means that at this time we can rotate this object around this center. We are rotating the object by clicking and holding a left mouse key on some of the corners of the object, but at the same time I want you to see this value over here, the angle of rotation. As I am rotating this object, you can see that the angle of rotation is changing at the same time. Okay, I'm clicking and holding my left mouse key, and now I'm rotating this object. As you can see, now I have 37.2 degrees value in the angle of rotation. If I let go my left mouse key, you can see that now this object is rotated around the center for 37.2 degrees. I can type the value of the angle of rotation if I go with my mouse cursor in this field and double click. I will type with the keyboard 90 degrees, and if I click on the working area over here with our mouse cursor with the left mouse click, I will rotate this object for 90 degrees. If I want to put it back in the first position, I will click once on the object to select it, and I will click again to have these arrows for rotation. And over here in the angle of rotation, I will double click and I will type 0. Then with the mouse cursor I will click in the working area. As you can see, we put our object in the first position. With our pick tool we can have multiple selections. That means that we can select 2 objects at the same time. How do we do it? So we click on the first object is selected, and then we press and hold our shift key and click on our second object. As you can see, we have 8 black squares around 2 objects, and that means that these 2 objects are selected at the same time. If I go with my mouse cursor on some of the surface of the red rectangle or the blue rectangle, I can click and hold the left mouse key, and I will move this object at the same time. As you can see, I'm moving the 2 objects at the same time. I can put it over here, I can put them over here, I can put them on the down area, I can put it up again, because the 2 objects are selected at the same time. If we go with our mouse cursor in the upper right corner, you can see that our cursor has the same shape as previous, so we can resize these two objects at the same time. I click and hold my left mouse key, and now I'm making these two objects bigger. I can go to this corner and I can click and hold my left mouse key and I can make them smaller. I will put them over here. And our third command is rotating the two objects. If I click again in this area or in the blue area on some of these two selected objects, we get the same arrows around this object, and by clicking and holding our left mouse key in some of the corners, we can rotate these two objects at the same time around this center. You can see in the angle of rotation that the angle of rotation is changing while we are rotating these two objects. I click and hold, so as you can see I have rotated these two objects for 46.9 degrees. If I want to rotate it for 90 degrees, I will double click in this area with our mouse key, with the left mouse key, and type 90 degrees, and then go with the mouse cursor in this field, then click with the left mouse key, and now our two objects are rotated for 90 degrees. If I want to put it in the first position, I click on the first object, I hold my shift key on the keyboard, I click on the second object, and while I'm here in this object, I click again with the left mouse key, and now in the field of angle of rotation I double click and type in 0. So if I click on a working area, you can see that our two objects are in the previous position. I can do the same thing with three objects. For example, if I click on the first object, I click and hold shift on the keyboard, I click on the second object, and I click on the third object. You can see we have 8 black squares around three objects, and I can move them all three at the same time. If I go in the upper right corner or in the down left corner, I can resize all three of them at the same time, or I can make them smaller, all three of them. And if I click somewhere on this surface in the yellow rectangle, or in this surface, on this surface, I can get these arrows for rotation, and I can rotate all three objects at the same time. As you can see, I have rotated the three rectangles for 41.7 degrees. I will double click here and I will type in 0, and if I click here, I'll get the previous position of all three objects.